Alright guys, welcome back to the channel. We've got a humongous fight coming up October 24th, right around the corner. Khabib Nurmagomedov versus Justin Gaethje. Yes, the fight's finally upon us. This is one of the greatest fights in mixed martial arts history, in my opinion anyway. Super exciting. I did a breakdown for this fight, I believe like over a year ago. I felt it was time to do an updated video with the fight around the corner. Some of my thoughts have remained the same, while some have changed. And possibly my fight pick of the winner has changed. But you'll find out if you stick with the video. This is going to be a more detailed, more comprehensive breakdown. Gonna talk about stats, attributes, skill sets, how I think the fight might play out. So let's dive into it and not waste any more time. Alright, let's start with the challenger, Justin Gaethje. Gaethje is 31 years old. He is 5'11" with a 70-inch reach. His excellent mixed martial arts record is 22 wins, 2 losses. 20 of those wins have been finishes. That's a 90% stoppage ratio. Khabib Nurmagomedov, similar age, similar physical stats. Khabib is 32, he's 5'10", he also has a 70-inch reach. His perfect mixed martial arts record is 28 wins, 0 losses. 18 finishes in Khabib's career, that's a 64% stoppage ratio. Alright, so let's get into these stats. So strikes landed per minute. Not too big of a difference between the two, but Gaethje's stats are mostly standing for sure, as opposed to Khabib, mostly ground and pound. Striking accuracy comparable, but again, standing versus ground. It's harder to be accurate standing, hitting a moving target, hitting a moving opponent, as opposed to smashing on somebody on the ground when they're pinned and immobilized. Strikes absorbed per minute, big difference and no surprise here. Gaethje bangs on the feet 95% of the time. Khabib rarely keeps his standing, and he's smart for doing this, but takes the fight where he is exceptional, that's on the ground and wrestling. This strategy actually saves Khabib from absorbing a lot of shots. Smart, fight to your strengths. Nobody has been able to stop Khabib's game, that's why he's 28-0. Striking defense, another comparable stat, not to sound redundant, but standing for Gaethje, ground mostly for Khabib. I think having a high striking defense percentage when you're mostly a striker is more impressive than when a grappler has a higher percentage, because on the feet, you're avoiding shots in real time, punches, kicks, elbows, knees coming at you. It's easier to be defensive on the ground when you're smothering somebody, immobilizing them, and jamming their shots. Takedown average and accuracy, almost non-existent for Justin Gaethje, and that's no shocker. We all know that he uses his wrestling defensively and loves to knock dudes out. Khabib's takedown accuracy 47%, and that stat makes a ton of sense because Khabib is not a one-shot takedown kind of guy. He goes for the takedown. If he doesn't get it first attempt, he chain wrestles, works a single, usually against the cage, goes for a trip, hip toss, a whizzer, a slew of wrestling attacks. He eventually gets you down, just being relentless. With skill, of course, as opposed to a guy like GSP with a crazy blast double and one of the highest takedown percentages ever in the UFC. Khabib is remarkable at keeping you down once he gets you down to the mat. That's where he really shines. Khabib's takedown defense, fantastic, 84%. Nobody really tries to take Khabib down. They just try to avoid his takedowns. Justin Gaethje's takedown defense, 80% ratio, and that coincides with his solid defensive wrestling. Alright, so general thoughts on this fight and how it might play out. Let's talk about their physical attributes. Negligible. They're damn near the same height, same reach, almost the same age. I don't think their physical attributes and stats are going to make too much of a difference. Gaethje's skill set. Well, Justin Gaethje has been wrestling since he was 4 years old, a wrestler the majority of his life, and there's a handful of guys in the UFC, just a few, that have the proper background and skill set if they show up on their A game to give Khabib fits and big problems. I could name a few. Khabib is fighting one on the 24th, Justin Gaethje. Another guy is prime Tony Ferguson. Another nightmare matchup for Khabib is George St. Pierre, but we're focusing on the Justin Gaethje fight. So yeah, Gaethje being a lifelong wrestler and being a super dangerous striker, knockout artist, skill set wise, that's potentially a nightmare matchup for Khabib because the striking game is honestly not Khabib's forte. I'm not saying that he's not skilled, I'm not saying that he doesn't improve with every fight, he does, but let's get real, Khabib is a grappler and a wrestler. This is how he wins his fights, 90% wrestling and grappling. Now if Khabib can't get you down, if you give him fits, and the fight remains on the feet where he's not the better striker, what happens then? Enter Justin Gaethje. In my opinion, Gaethje's infinitely more dangerous on the feet, and the longer this fight stays standing, that's going to be big trouble for Khabib Nurmagomedov. I mean big trouble. Let's talk about Khabib's dominance and his possible game plan. Well, Khabib is 28-0. He's kind of a throwback fighter. He's not one-dimensional, but in some respects he kind of is. He's just a phenomenal wrestler, a special mixed martial arts wrestler, unparalleled control on the ground, and he said so himself against Gaethje. He's going to do or try what he always does, wrestle. So it's simple. Avoid the big shots on the feet, survive standing long enough to secure a takedown, make Gaethje work, of course eventually get him to the mat, control, ground and pound. If you can't get the finish, wash, rinse, repeat until you eventually do, or win a dominant decision. Khabib makes it look easy, but will it be easy for him against a lifelong great defensive wrestler like Justin Gaethje? I think that it's not going to be easy for Khabib. I think Justin is going to give Khabib fits with the takedowns. For example, and these are cold hard stats, against Conor McGregor, Khabib scored 3 out of 7 takedowns. And that's Conor McGregor. Now Conor gets a lot of crap for not being a good grappler, not being a good wrestler, but I honestly think he's pretty solid in the grappling department, and I think his takedown defense is underrated. But Gaethje is certainly a better wrestler, better grappler. I would think so anyway. And if Conor could stuff 4 out of 7, imagine the fits that Gaethje's gonna give Khabib. Now what could be Justin Gaethje's game plan? Leg kicks? People have been mentioning leg kicks. Leg kicks? Sure. Gaethje has devastating leg kicks, one of the main weapons in his arsenal. If he lands a few solid ones on Khabib, he's gonna compromise his legs, slow down his movement, affect his shots, affect his injuries. When you're on busted legs, you are a target in general. Opens everything up. Look what happened to Paulo Costa against Israel Adesanya. But if you throw leg kicks and Khabib is prepared, he can catch one of them, and that's going to open up a window for a takedown. But with Justin's wrestling background, I think he's pretty confident, and I don't think he'll be timid in throwing those leg kicks. Another part of Justin's game plan has to be to bust Khabib up and make him pay every time he attempts the takedown. He has to make it a battle for Khabib, make him work, make him huff and puff, beat him up a little bit, get dirty every single time. This is crucial, doing damage to Khabib early on as much as he can, because as the fight goes on, this is going to slow Khabib down and it's going to pay dividends later in the fight. The longer this fight goes, the more it favors Khabib. Gaethje has to keep his back off of the cage, keep it in the center of the octagon, because it's going to help with his takedown defense, and the cage is a weapon. It's a tool, and Khabib uses it brilliantly. He just wedges guys against the cage, and as he says, smash. Let's talk about Khabib's game plan and strategy. Well, he flat out needs to avoid the striking game with Justin Gaethje, especially with a fresh Justin Gaethje. Now it's different if Gaethje's kind of worn out, gassed a little bit, beat up from ground and pound. From the 3rd round on, maybe Khabib could play with the jab. Maybe he could have success on the feet because Gaethje's compromised. But if Justin isn't and he's still semi-fresh, standing is just flat out the danger zone for Khabib. Yeah, this one is pretty cut and dry to me, guys. Khabib has to avoid the stand-up. Don't keep it on the feet longer than he needs to. Make Justin work, try to gas him out, avoid damage early on, and who knows, maybe Khabib could get a stoppage later on in the fight, rear naked choke, TKO from ground and pound on a gassed and beat up Justin Gaethje. Gaethje, like I said, back off the cage, keep it center, stuff those takedowns, make Khabib work for them really hard, bust him up as he comes in, make him pay for the attempts, do as much damage as possible in the early rounds, and if Gaethje does that, who knows, he may even get a finish later on in the fight or win a dominant decision himself. Tall task, tall task. So ultimately, who do I think is going to win this fight? Well, in my first breakdown, I found the fight to be really close, competitive, and I picked Khabib Nurmagomedov to edge it out. present day, the more that I thought about this fight, I still think it's a close fight. I think it's an amazing matchup, amazing style clash, and right now I'm favoring Justin Gaethje to shock the world. But it's not going to be easy. I just feel like Gaethje has the skill set, he has the tools, he has the background, and he's really dangerous in areas that I feel Khabib is vulnerable. But we'll see what happens, guys. Khabib is 28-0 for a reason, freaking beast, and if he wins in dominant fashion, trust me, I'll be back here singing his praises. But I think Gaethje's gonna get it done. We'll see what happens. If I had to put a ratio on it, 55-45, Justin Gaethje. Anyway guys, I hope you enjoyed the breakdown. If this is your first time at the channel and you enjoyed the video, consider subscribing, like and share, very important, helps the channel grow guys. I would love to read your opinions on this fight. What are your picks and why? Super excited for this fight. Let's see what happens October 24th guys. Thanks again, and until the next segment, you all take care.